Hello, so this video is about the segment question of the midterm exam. So first, our group is constituted of Yu-Wen, Hsiao, and Cabanac. So first I will recall what is the objective of the second question. So the second question is about taking data from two files, student.dat and teacher.dat, and store them into a database. And once the database created, search by ID using a query in the database in order to display the detailed information of the person. So I will explain what type of object we have. So we have a people class that will start to abstract. It's an abstract class that we used for interface for students and our teacher. So it's composed of a name, an ID, and three methods. So the first one is get information that will be used to get all the information of the person. Get SQL that will serve to get SQL query. We will see it later. And the get ID that will be used to get the ID of the person. So we will see our student and our teacher class. So the student class that extends the PO, and that add the two variables, major and GPA. We create our student class by object by giving his name, his ID, his major, and his GPA. It will get from the file. There is the get info method that will just return all the variables in the object. So, as you can see. And there is the get SQL method. It's a new method compared to the first question that will be used to insert the person. So basically, we transform the GPA that is a float into a string, and we'll return a string that composes the SQL query. So we have the insert into the student record. So that is the table of student. His ID, his name, his major, and GPA to indicate in which column we want to put information, and the values, so the values that we get from the object. And so that's basically all. For the teacher, we have the same object, but for the teacher purpose. So here we have the department and the int that is the number of course. We create the teacher the same way as the student by giving all his information, a string, and so we convert the string into ID through int for the ID and for the number of course. The get information will just return as a string all the information, and the get SQL as the same as student will give a query that will be used to get the information. So here you can see insert into the teacher record, that is the teacher table. ID, name, department, and teaching course numbers that are the name of the column in the database, and the values, so the ID, the name, the department, and the number of course. So now we'll see the search engine. So the search engine is where we have our main method that will run all of this. And you can see that we have an object to manage a database. So we'll see what the object about. So this is an object which purpose is to manage all the exchange with the database. So we have three variables. The first is the connection, the statement that we will use through the object, and an element, the applicable element. So first, when we create the object, we initialize the database by doing the connection with our database. We create the statement, the statement object that we will use through the object. So the first method is to realize an update request on a database. So basically, we just take the request as a string, and with the statement, we just send the request in the execute update method. And so we we just return an int on the state of the method, if the method succeeds or not. Then we have another method is to do a query. So it's working quite as the same, but this time it's a for query, so we will manage the response. So basically, we create a result object that will store the result from the query, and we just call the execute query a method from the statement object by just giving the request. So we print the request we send in order to keep track of what's happening on the server, on the program. And then we will just for every line in the request, in the response, we will return what we get. So basically, we just return a string composed of all the response we get. So for every column. And so since our objects have 4 columns, so we will always get 4 columns in the response by doing our query. And if we didn't find anything, so it never went into there, so it means that we don't have a result. We'll just write no result found, and then an error if we get an error. And the final method is about to store from file in the database. So basically, we create a scanner that will be used to scan the file. So we just give it through a file and a type. So we create the scanner from the file. Then for every line in the file, we'll create a new element. So here we can see that if a student will create a student object, and if it's a teacher, we'll create a teacher object by getting all the information from the file. So once we have our object, we'll use the getSQL method to get the correct SQL query with all the values in it, the good values. So we will print the query we will do, and after we'll just use the method to update with the element SQL line. And at the end, if we get a problem, we just return 84, and if not, we return 0. So that's all for our database object. So now we'll see how it works, all connect together. So first we create our database object and create the object. So we create the database, simple. Then we put the information in the database using our dump method. So first we give it the file, so the file student in the first case, and the type student, since it's composed of students. And then we do the same things for the teacher. After we create a scanner input that will scan what there is on the system in order to get the user information. Then we just do a infinite loop that will. So first we indicate to the user what he should do, so enter an ID. Then we just get the ID that the user type in, and at the end we do the query to search for the ID. So we do a query with so we select from the student record where the ID is equal to the ID that the user gives us, and we do an union to do a query in the two database in the two tables. Sorry, so the student record table and the teacher record table. And at the end, so we get the result, and we just display the information of the result. So we execute the file. So first you can see that there is we insert all the information into the student record for all the students. So with the name and the ID, the major and the GPA of the student. And after we do the same for the teacher. So the ID, the name, the department, and the teaching course with the associated value. And so now the database is filled with all of our information. So we will do a query. So for example, if we start for the first student, we select everything from the student record where ID is equal to what we type in, and from the teacher record where there is the ID. And so we get the detailed information of the good person. Now we'll try with a teacher ID. So we search for Mike. And so we get the information from Mike. And the thing that is nice is that if we just type an ID that is the wrong ID, it will return us no result from, since there is nobody in the database that have this ID. So that's basically all. Thank you for your attention and see you in the next video.